Okay, we are happy to have everybody here. Thank you for being here, and I appreciate everyone's participation. We have a fun agenda today and get to hear a lot of good updates. Just a couple of reminders. One, we are streaming this live, so as you speak or ask questions or make comments or respond to roll call, things like that, make sure you're using the microphone in front of you so that the people out in YouTube land can hear us. And thank you for that, and just keep that in mind as you make your comments. Let's go ahead and get started with roll call. So Eiler, will you do that for us, and we'll officially start the meeting.
Good morning. As I call your name, please use a microphone to confirm your attendance audibly. If you are a member of a local workforce development board, please state the local board. If you are representing by proxy and your name is not called, please state your name for the record. Jackie Akbari? Yes.
Here.
Natalie Alvarez?
Present.
Martha Axford?
Here.
Brandy Lassiter for State Senator Paul Bailey. Assistant Commissioner Jay Baker.
Present.
Joe Baker.
Present.
Ben Ferguson, proxy for Jason Bates.
Present.
Tim Berry.
Present.
Linda Botch.
Present, Southern Middle.
Josh Brown.
Present.
State Representative Clark Boyd. Suzanne Carr for Commissioner Carter.
Present.
Billy Dykes.
Here.
Ben Ferguson.
Present. Southwest.
Max Goldberg. Linda Botch, proxy for Marshall Graves.
Here.
J. Paul Jackson. David Jordan.
Present.
Sharita Allen, proxy for Mayor Tim Kelly.
Present.
Policy Director and Governor's Designee Michael Hendricks.
Present.
Sandra Long. Director Jenny McCabe for Commissioner McWhorter. Mayor Mike Progreba.
Present, Northern Middle.
Stuart Price.
Present.
Assistant Commissioner Deborah Knoll for Commissioner Reynolds.
Present.
Lee Sloan.
Present.
Stuart Price, proxy for David Stansel.
Present.
Commissioner Denise Thomas.
Present.
Will Trum.
Present.
Jeff Vance.
Present.
Ron Wade.
Present. Greater Memphis.
Assistant Commissioner Kevin Wright.
Present.
As a reminder, for any votes during this meeting, you must recuse yourself if there's a conflict of interest. Chairman Berry, we have a quorum.
Very good. Thank you, Eiler. I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Thomas for a minute. If you would just please introduce who's sitting next to me.
Good morning, members of the board. I think the person doesn't need an introduction.
Probably not.
It's probably the easiest introduction I've ever had to make. It is our esteemed pleasure to introduce the 50th Governor of the great state of Tennessee, Bill Lee.
Denise has the pattern for how to do introductions. Thank you. I saw her in the hall this morning and on the way in, and I was like, you and I are seeing each other every other day here lately, in part because of what y'all are doing and so important. I knew this gathering was happening. I just wanted to, I asked our team if we could figure out how to schedule so I could stop in and greet you and tell you thank you. The work that you do is incredibly important to us, which is why Executive Order 109 was signed in the first place in the spring, I think April or so. And you all know what that EO does, But what I told our folks, and the reason that ended up happening is because the work that we do developing workforce in this state, arguably one of the most important things we can do if we care about impacting the lives of Tennesseans. In my job, you know, the most important thing for me is to make sure that whatever we do, that somehow it is a part of creating an environment where Tennesseans have access to a better way of life. Usually that means to a better job, to a better opportunity for their family, and that has everything to do with the work that the State Workforce Development Board does. And I just want to say thank you. I want to remind you that there are 7 million people who hope that rooms like this are filled with people who lean into what they're doing and think about how they can do it better, how they can be more innovative, how they can be more responsive to what's happening around us. And that's also why we did EO 109, was to give you more authority, to give you more impact, to give you accountability requirements, to kind of say, if we're going to have a board like this, and we have this incredibly important issue in our state of developing workers, then we need to elevate it as much as possible. And this idea of developing workers has always been important to me. Stuart Price on this board from the days back when I worked with Stuart at Lee Company to find workers. It was, and Mike Pagrevis, electrical workers, really hard to find. And we knew that years ago, and we struggled to get workers for our companies that were growing and creating opportunity for people, and you couldn't do it. And so when I came into office, we created the GIVE Act, vocational education, government investment, vocational education. We put $500 million in middle school CTE programs. We put $1 billion into our technical colleges and TCATs, and they're being built all over the state. There's been a significant push in our administration, not only in encouragement and in policy, but in dollars, to build out the workforce in this state, because I have come to realize in my job too that the state with the workers is going to win in the competition for jobs. I just spent 2 weeks, a couple of weeks ago in Taiwan and in Korea and Japan, meeting with companies that, because of where we are in the world economic situation and the desire to onshore manufacturing and technology in the United States, these global companies are looking to invest in America. And they're trying to decide where they're going to invest and where they're going to build their plants, how they're going to, what facilities they're going to expand, what they're going to make here instead of there. And so I went and I met with a lot of those companies in those 3 countries. And they know who we are because of the dynamics of Tennessee right now. It's a very, very dynamic place economically. Fastest growing economy in the country, one of. The tax structure, the environmental, the regulatory environment that exists in this state, it's very attractive to companies across the globe. And yet we're competing with, Georgia and North Carolina and states, Florida and Texas and states around the country for these investments. But I will tell you, there's 2 things they care about and they ask about. There's a lot of things they care about, but there's 2 things that kind of comes down to in the end. Do you have workers? And do you have power? And we can talk about power another day. I can go off on nuclear energy for a long time. I'd probably bore you with my excitement about what's happening in Tennessee around power. and the partnerships we're creating from federal all the way down. But the other one is workers. Do you have them? What are you doing to develop them? I'm convinced that the meetings we had with the COO of Ford in Detroit, when they were looking to build their plant and they had every state in America to choose from, and I would fly up there and sit down with them across the table and say, here's how we're going to develop, here's how we're going to get you workers for your biggest investment in Ford Motor Company's history in the middle of rural Tennessee. Here's how we'll do it. Here, we have a plan, and they believed it. But you all know that executing on that plan is incredibly difficult. It's one thing to say we can do it, it's another thing to do it. And Ford is just a big example. You know, it's a big sort of public example, but there's dozens of those kind of examples across our state where the companies are going to make decisions based on our workforce development strategy and actually what we're putting out for workers for these industries, broad scope of industries. So, and that's why I'm so fired up about this. This new TN Works strategy that we have, you know, we've been doing workforce development in correction and human services and, you know, every department of state, economic development. We have workforce development strategies in Department of Health for healthcare workers. We have workforce development strategies everywhere, and they're just, you know, I've watched that over the first 5 or 6 years and said, this ought to be, like, we need to consolidate this effort. This is one of the most important things in state. And that, therefore, the elevation of the power of this board and the creation of a consolidated sort of integrated strategy, TN Works, that I'm sure you've heard about. Many of you were there the other day when we announced it. It's not just a brand, it is a strategic alignment of the people that are going to make sure that this is a highly pursued subject in the state of Tennessee. So I could go on a long time because I love this subject and I love what you're doing, and I'm grateful. It takes a lot of personal effort for a lot of you to take your time out of your days and your schedules and your jobs and the work that you do to show up and lean into and take the time invested here. But there are 7 million people who hope that there are rooms of people like this that can do it, that are willing to give of their time for an issue that's so important. And I'll close with this, with just the reminder of those 7 million people. That's why I do the job I do, is because, you know, when Maria and I were campaigning, we had our old bus and we rode around, and I tell a story everywhere I go of when we passed by this mailbox and there was a guy standing there at his mailbox. It's real rural county, and there was a, you know, kind of farmhouse up his long driveway, and we had a conversation, Maria and I, about, wonder if we stopped and said, hey, I'm running for governor, look, see my bus, and, you know, it's me. Nobody was paying attention to me back then, but I said, I wonder if we stopped and asked them what matters to them. What would they tell me if I was saying, you know what, I'm running for governor. If I end up being your next governor, what do you want to know? What do you want me to know? It kind of drove a real interesting conversation for me and Maria to say, you know what, that's what we should be asking ourselves. Not, yes, you got to win a campaign. Yes, you got to go to the political things and do this stuff, and that takes you elected. But at the end of the day, if you become governor, the guy in the mailbox is who you're working for. And that's the person that you ought to remind yourself that you care about. Doesn't matter whether they voted for you or not. Doesn't matter whether they vote at all. Doesn't matter whether they're political. But it does matter that they're a Tennessean and you're in the position you're in to impact their life for good. And how do you do that? What matters to him? And that's kind of where what matters is that I have a good job and a good school for my kid, and I live in a safe neighborhood. Like, that's what matters to me. And that's what matters to everybody. And having a good job is kind of the life-changing component to the well-being of that family. And having a good job, and every time we attract a company or a company that exists here in Tennessee creates another 50 jobs, somebody takes that job because it's better than the job they had before. And those 50 families have a better opportunity than they used to. And the job they left is probably a better job for somebody else than they had before. And this simple concept that what you do today in your work here affects the people that live behind the mailboxes, that's why we do it. And that's why I'm grateful. And that's why I'm excited about accelerating this work of workforce development, because we are winning as a state, but we are in a very tight competition to win for the people that live in the mailboxes. So thank you for letting me welcome you, and thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Governor. Okay, and we had a great, appreciate the people who were able to make it to the Governor's Conference last week. So thank you for being a part of that and being part of the announcement of Tennessee Works. It was very helpful to see the alignment and the efficiency that's going to be created throughout our governments and throughout our work there. We also have a new board member to introduce today. Josh, are you here? Wave at everybody. There he is. So we're happy to have you here. Make sure on a break or something you shake his hand and welcome him to the board. He's the president and CEO of the Tennessee Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So we've heard him present at previous meetings before, but happy to have you as part of the board. Okay. Let's wait for, I think I've covered everything I was supposed to say up to this point. So now, Commissioner, I'll turn it over to you, and you can share your thoughts from Governor's Conference and anything else you want to share with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning again to the board. I don't have a lot of workforce updates because it's kind of hard to follow the one who championed it all, and our governor. But the Governor's Conference, obviously, a lot of you were there, and thank you so much for your commitment and your sacrifice to be there. What a fantastic conference. The energy felt right. The official launch of Tennessee Works by the governor felt right. It was palpable in the air that people really want to see us get ourselves in a posture that makes sense, not just for serving Tennesseans, but business and industry. We had heard for far too long that business didn't want to be door knocked from multiple agencies, all offering to provide a solution for common issues. And so this has been a long time coming. I'm thankful and grateful to the governor that he has challenged us in such a way to get this work done, but also supported us in being able to do the work. It takes a tremendous amount of time and financial investment to be able to get in this posture. So stay tuned, because I think you'll be seeing a lot more with Tennessee Works. But I really want to just thank this board, because Executive Order 109 was really laying a foundation to get to where we are right now. Empowering this board, as the governor mentioned, was really creating an infrastructure by which you had a group that was trusted to really take the baton and drive the governor's vision, not just at a state level, but also at a regional and local level. And so your expanded order, Executive 109, really gave you the posture and the support and the authority to be able to do that. And so we look forward to future updates. But just a quick recap for those of you that weren't able to be there, perhaps, we have a little video I'd like for you to see. So we had their aristocratic band, and we had Nate Bargatze. Can you believe it? So we had a little celebrity, a lot of good music and drum lines going. So it was really exciting. And thank you again to the board members that were there. We are so thrilled that today we can say the shutdown is over. Yay. I will say this, though, although we were all anxiously waiting for the end of the government shutdown, one thing I can say with great pride in Tennessee, we were never closed. Tennessee was always open for business, serving our constituents, serving our businesses. But unfortunately, we were impacted by the shutdown. We informed several of you in email that we furloughed 13 of our staff in Bureau and Labor Statistics immediately, the first day of the shutdown. Funding was suspended, and so that staff had to be furloughed. Those decisions are never easy, but without the funding, it was virtually impossible to keep them on. That staff is now back, so we look forward to getting our labor statistics all caught up and being able to share that information to the board. But really want to thank the staff because we know it's not easy for all of those that were furloughed, but they are so committed to the work that we are welcoming them back with open arms. I want to talk just for a second about our partnerships. Tennessee Works is one thing, but there are also several initiatives that are going on. You're going to hear from some of that on today. But I will tell you, the lifeblood of Tennessee, being able to really win this race the governor talked about, is our ability to embrace workforce partnerships in a way that's meaningful. And so you're going to be hearing more, and we'll be bringing more opportunities to this board for consideration about how we partner. You know, we've really floated around this idea in the agency about how do we create more of a community level impact by engaging and resourcing those that have fidelity in the community that are doing great work. Even though the state can create the vision, it really happens locally. The action happens locally, and it's not for us to intervene in that process, but to determine how to be good partners. So you're going to hear more about that today, but really excited we'll be coming back now that the government has reopened, and there's some funding that we were awarded that we'll be able to use that Deputy Hoskinson has been leading. So we'll be sharing some information with the board coming up shortly. But Chairman, outside of tremendous thanks, that's all I have outside of recognizing two very important people before I close out. As you know, our local boards do incredible work all across our state, and the leadership of the executive directors is pivotal to that work. Well, today, I'm sure they're happy, but I have mixed feelings. We have two executive directors that will be retiring and moving on. And so Barbara Kaiser, Barbara, are you here? Thank you, Barbara. Barbara is retiring. She serves as the executive director for the Southern Middle Local Workforce Development Board. And Barbara, I'm sure the board joins me in thanking you for all your incredible work. It was very quickly we were able to see the impact that you brought to Southern Middle. Your partnership, your approach to innovation was second to none. So thank you very much, Barbara, for your work, and we wish you nothing but the best in the future. Becky Hull, Executive Director of Upper Cumberland, is also retiring. I believe her official retirement ceremony is on Tuesday. Becky is not with us today, but hopefully she's watching. We send Becky a lot of love and light. Becky took over Upper Cumberland, if the board will remember, at a time when things were not going well. And she has really steered that board to a massive turnaround and has really led in creativity and innovation that has certainly helped the residents of Upper Cumberland. And so again, we thank Becky for her service. I believe Becky's replacement is here, not Becky's replacement. He's obviously not replacing Becky, he's his own. Can you stand the new executive director? There you are. He is here, and we have committed our time and our resources to help him be successful. We know Upper Cumberland will not lose any momentum with you at the helm, sir, so we look forward to working with you. And Mr. Chairman, those are my comments. I turn it back over to you.
Very good. Thank you so much. We have one vote we need to do regarding the minutes from the last meeting. Hopefully you had a chance to review those in the materials. So I'll ask for a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Martha. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jackie. All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes have been approved. All right, we're happy to have a presentation today about our economic outlook. And Joe Baker, you had asked a couple of meetings ago about some AI, what's the state doing about AI? So we get to hear a little bit about that. We had some materials in our, had the report that he produced in the materials, so hopefully you have a chance to look at that as well. But let's welcome Edward Taylor to give us a little more insight.
Thank you all. It's a great honor to be here. I've never had to follow a governor before, so this is a little bit of a new experience for me. My name is Ed Taylor. I'm a research associate, excuse me, at the Boyd Center for Business and Economic Research at the University of Tennessee. And I would like to talk with you this morning and present to you my work on assessing AI's impacts and preparing the workforce. A man that I admire greatly and a great philosopher, a great American, said it's tough to make predictions, especially about the future. And to some extent, we're going to be looking into the future today, so keep that in mind. It's very hard. No one really knows what's exactly going to happen. And when it comes to AI, we're only in the third inning. I've been telling people that around the state. Actually, I was listening to CNBC this morning, and one of their commentators said we're only in the second inning. So maybe I'm a little too far ahead. The agenda, we've got a lot to cover in 20 minutes. I'm going to give you an introduction, talk about a definition of artificial intelligence. We will talk about what types of occupations are most at risk for AI-related disruption. We will then move on to what skills are required for an AI workforce in this day and time. And then lastly, we will make an assessment of the skill gaps that we have in digital and AI skills, and what do we do about that? How do we upskill people? And then at the end, we'll have a brief wrap-up. I have used a very simple definition for AI that I like a lot. It's a technology that enables machines to perform cognitive tasks usually associated with humans. AI is also, it's a general purpose technology. In that respect, it's a lot like electricity, the internal combustion engine, the personal computer, the internet. It has broad applications for many, most, but not every single occupation yet. It is gradually reshaping the way we live and work. It can be used in two basic ways, all right? AI can substitute for human labor and perform a task, or it can complement. It can be like an extra tool in the toolbox. And so we'll talk more about those two methods of use as we go forward. What researchers are finding is that at this early stage, there's some polarization. The low-skilled jobs and the high-skilled jobs are continuing to increase in number, but there seems to be some stagnation right in the middle skill roles. And at least some of this might be attributed to AI becoming a bigger and bigger part of the workforce. Researchers at the U.S. Department of Labor and also at the President's Council of Economic Advisors have done a lot of work to try to find out which occupations are likely to be most affected. And being economists, they needed a framework, so they made a list of 41 different work activities. And this list is comprehensive. You can take any of the 800 or so occupations and you can define that any individual occupation by some subset of those 41 lists. 16 of those 41 have been termed AI-exposed activities. Those are the activities on a job where AI can help you perform a particular task by either substituting for your input or by complementing it. Some examples of those include getting information, performing administrative functions, analyzing data, all things that AI does very well. The other 25, if it's not an AI-exposed activity, they lumped it into the category other. Performing general physical activities, assisting and caring for others, organizing and planning work, sort of a middle management role, that latter one. What they found is AI's impact varies considerably by occupation. They took each of these 800 occupations one at a time, and they mapped the applicable activities onto that occupation. And then they prioritized that list of activities for a given occupation. If the most critical activities pertaining to that occupation were AI exposed, and there were enough of them, then they termed that high task exposure to AI. Otherwise, low task exposure. But they didn't stop there. They said for these tasks that are AI exposed, are they low complexity tasks or high complexity tasks? So now we've got 4 buckets of tasks. And they put occupations in one of these 4 buckets. As I was pondering how to explain this, I thought I might use a construction company. I happen to work in construction for about 10 years. I'm a structural engineer by training, so it's one that I know pretty well. And it occurred to me that in your typical small construction company, you've got at least one occupation in each of these categories. All right, so let's look at these. The top row is low exposure to AI. The construction laborer has low complexity tasks, all right? He is out in the field typically, he or she out in the field typically, you know, walking, lifting, using power tools. AI is not going to have a big impact on that occupation, at least at the present time. What about the project manager? All right, that's a job where there's a lot of strategic decision making. It's made on the basis of experience and judgment. Now, that's not to say that AI can't play a role in that job. Occasionally, there's scheduling tasks and other things where AI could certainly be a complement and be useful. But it's the bottom row that we're going to be concerned about today. How about the engineer? High complexity, high exposure. When a structural engineer designs a project, there are a lot of calculations, a lot of quantitative work. He's trying to optimize something, usually low cost, okay? AI, these are high complexity tasks, and AI can be a great help. It can be a time saver, improve the productivity of that person, right? What about the high exposure and low complexity occupations? All right, the Office in Administrative Support in that construction office has an information-heavy position. They are constantly dealing with documents, contracts, accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll, all right? These are tasks where AI excels, information-type tasks. And these particular tasks are sort of rule-based. I mean, you can set up a set of rules, and there's not much variation. When you process payroll once, and then you do it a second time, it's not that different. So here is where AI, in a substitutive use, can cause great disruption to those types of middle skill occupations. Remember I said we were concerned about the middle skill. So for the purposes of today, I want you to remember this table, and we're going to be on the bottom row, high exposure, primarily concerned about the people on the left side, high exposure and low complexity tasks, because that's where the disruption is going to occur. Here are just a few examples of highly exposed occupations. Left-hand side, clerks of all type because they do repetitive work, proofreaders, transcriptionists. What about high exposure, high complexity? These are the kinds of occupations where they're going to be using AI in a complementary manner. They're likely to improve their productivity, probably earn higher wages. Engineers, map makers, pilots, nuclear power reactors, nuclear power reactor operators, not the reactors themselves. Another group of researchers from the Pew Research Group looked at two-digit NAICS industries. There's about 20 of them. And what they found was that there are a few that have a very high percentage of those occupational workers who are highly exposed to AI working in those industries. The top group, professional, scientific, and technical services, about half. Finance, insurance, and real estate, public administration, information, about a third each. The other end of that is the bottom group, accommodation and food services, 2%, construction, retail, trade, agriculture, and mining. What I like to think of as the mechanical arts. They don't have a high percentage of highly exposed workers in those industries. So now we've got some semblance of how AI exposure is going to affect a type of occupation and a type of industry. What skills do workers need in an AI world? I found this quote. It was in the Tennessee Higher Education Commission update plan from 2020. Dr. Bill Fox, a lot of you may know him. He was former director of the Boyd Center, happens to be the man that hired me. And he was quoted as saying, "All individuals employed in Tennessee must learn to interact with artificial intelligence using critical thinking, data analysis, and diverse communication skills, rather than simply rely on artificial intelligence to complete a variety of tasks." Shortly after I read this, I read another commentary by a research professor at MIT. He said something very similar. He said, we need critical thinking, technical skills, and adaptability. So I think it's obvious that what we need are a range of skills, some technical, some just human-centric and life skills. You need to be adaptable. If you're on a factory floor working beside a robot, you need to learn how to work alongside that robot. You need to be able to communicate to your fellow workers what's going on. But we'll focus for now on the technical skills. A survey by the National Skills Coalition and the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta determined that of all of the jobs in Tennessee, there are only 10% of those that definitely do not require digital skills. What are we talking about when we say digital skills? We're talking about using technology to find, create, organize, and communicate information. So what they found was that 43% definitely require digital skills, and 47% likely require digital skills. That's not surprising given that we're in a digital economy. Do we have those skills? Well, another survey by the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development surveyed U.S. workers 16 to 64, and what they found was that almost a third of those workers lack one or more digital skills. What are we talking about with digital skills? Can you send an email? Can you sort your email from newest to oldest to newest? Can you find an email that you got from a customer 6 months ago? Can you complete a spreadsheet that has 2 columns of numbers, and can you create a third column, which is the sum of those? Can you fill out an online digital form? So at least a third of U.S. workers ages 16 to 64 lack one of those digital skills. Now, I like to think of digital skills as being sort of a prerequisite to AI literacy, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. All right, now, AI literacy, what is that? It's understanding the capabilities and limitations of AI to be able to use them as a tool in your daily work. Again, we're on the bottom row of that previous slide. High exposure, low complexity occupations are going to require those human-centric skills, okay? The adaptability, the communication, the critical thinking. They're also going to need these digital skills, and they're going to need elementary AI knowledge. They're going to need to know how to create a query. They're going to need to know the term data bias. They're going to need to know what are the security risks and privacy risks in using AI. What about the high exposure, high complexity occupations, the engineers, architects, et cetera? Well, they're going to need everything we just talked about, plus data skills. They're going to need to know a programming language. They're going to need to know how to get information in and out of the cloud, and they're going to need some specialized knowledge. What is specialized knowledge? Being able to make your AI work with other systems within your organization, your call center, your accounting software, et cetera, et cetera. Does the U.S. have workers with those skills? Well, according to 3 separate surveys, we do not. We don't have enough, I should say. Amazon Web Service survey of 1,340 U.S. organizations, 3 out of 4 said they can't find the AI talent they need. World Economic Forum, 2 out of 3 employers said AI skill gaps are the biggest barrier to business transformation. McKinsey & Company, a global consulting firm, half of the CEOs, CFOs, COOs said the AI talent skill gaps inhibit their growth. So we've got work to do here. Here are some specific skill gaps for the high exposure, low complexity, or these middle skill workers. AI literacy, technical and data skills, critical thinking. What's the impact of those workers lacking those skills? Well, they're vulnerable to automation of the routine cognitive and manual tasks. What about the high exposure, high complexity occupations? What skill gaps do they have? AI integration, advanced data science, and ethical reasoning. Not every application of AI is an ethical application. Tennessee was one of the first states to recognize that when they passed the Elvis Act, ensuring likeness, voice, and image security. But if they can use AI effectively, those occupations are going to be able to augment their work. They're going to achieve greater productivity. How do we close the skill gaps? Well, going back to digital skills for a minute, I noticed in the Tennessee Digital Opportunity Plan that digital skills are mentioned 29 times. So somebody's already working on that. For AI skills, we need to have a multi-pronged approach. We need to advance AI education at the K-12 level. Some of you all probably know Dr. Lynn Parker, who was the first director of the AI Tennessee Initiative, and at one time, Deputy Chief Technology Officer of the United States. She's a big fan of this first one. We need to incorporate AI learning into community college and technical education programs. Just this past August, the United States Department of Labor came out with guidance to states on how to use the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act funds to improve AI literacy at the state level. We can invest in public-private partnerships. A lot of these big corporations, Amazon, Walmart, Verizon, they have these programs. Tennessee recently became the 6th state to sign on to the Amazon, it's called the Skills to Jobs Tech Alliance. And some of that collaboration is already going on between Amazon and Nashville State Community College. A lot of AI knowledge is proprietary rather than general. It belongs to the organization that's using it. That training needs to occur at the employer level. We need to find a way to incentivize that. All right, what are the take-home points for today? AI is a general-purpose technology. It has broad applications. It can either substitute or complement human labor. Depending on the task requirements, some occupations will be affected a little or not at all, others more dramatically. Today's jobs increasingly require digital and AI skills. We have a deficit in both. Tennessee should expand digital AI education and workforce training at all levels through multiple pathways. Upskilling is essential so that we do not leave workers behind. Here's your obligatory picture of the University of Tennessee campus and Neyland Stadium. And with that, if we have time, I'll be happy to try and answer any questions that you might have.
Very good. Thank you, Edward. I mean, fantastic. One of the things I like about it most is that in the list of solutions to close those gaps that you gave us, it sounds like we've already got some of those in motion.
Absolutely.
And so that's very encouraging as a board member to see that. So what questions do you have for Edward as a board? Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm curious, and this may be beyond the research that you're doing, but when we talk about the low-skilled labor, like the construction, when you're putting that quadrant up, I think it was the labor portion that wasn't as exposed. Yeah.
Yes.
Are there concerns? It seems like robotics is kind of next. You know, we've heard about AI and ChatGPT and all of the new developments over the last few years. Robotics seems like in the next 5 to 10 years that seems to be advancing quickly. Are you doing research on that piece as it relates to the lower skilled labor and what the effects might be there?
We have not done anything specifically on that, but let me just give you an anecdote. There is a company in Maryville, Tennessee. It's owned by Newell Industries. They make Sharpie pens there. And they made those in China in the early 2000s. And then in 2018, they said, we should reshore that. And they invested $2 billion in technology and hundreds of hours, in thousands of hours, I guess, in employee training. They have 550 employees, okay? And today, much of that technology was automation. So today, they've increased their productivity by 3 times. They have a better quality product, and they still have all 550 employees. So they've gone from production employees to servicing robots and whatever. I'm really not sure, you know, what all is involved. I've never seen their operation. But the point being that there's going to be some sort of transition. If we get robots on the manufacturing floor, most people think that the people that are now there, their job is going to change, but it is not going to go away. They will be taking care of these robots. In some cases, working side by side with them. Hope that answered your question.
Yeah. What other questions? Yes, Stuart.
Thank you for your presentation. It's certainly exciting. But it does beg the question, even in your example, as we march forward in time, these increased productivities in the past would have resulted in a need for increased employment, right? Those 550 would have needed to be, 1,000 and then 1,500 to get 3 times the production that they had gotten with 550. So is there a parallel consideration for future needs in terms of people and their needs for employment relative to the implementation of AI into our manufacturing and productivity? And I guess it leaves me a little concerned we're going to have a younger generation that are going to find it hard to find employment. Is that a concern?
That has been a fear in any technological innovation, I think. What I can tell you is, in 2018, 60%, only 40% of the occupations that existed in 2018 were around in 1940, okay? So technology evolves and new jobs are created. Some of the old ones go away. Internal combustion engine, buggy whip makers went away. But new ones spring up because, we have these great, powerful things and applications that we can't even stand here and foresee right now. So there was a very famous economist, J.M. Keynes, who in 1930 predicted that because of all the technology that Americans, not just Americans, but we were only going to be working 15 hours a week 100 years later. Well, we're pretty close to 2030 right now. I don't know of anybody in this room that would say that they're only going to be working 15 hours a week. So I think that's a common concern with any sort of new technology, but what we're missing is the new things that are going to come down the pike and provide those jobs.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
You mentioned kind of categories of job displacement. Have you done any more research in terms of like percentage of job displacement? I know to Joe's point, I think the confluence of AI and robotics, and I've kind of heard the argument of the internal combustion engine replacing horse and buggy, but this may be the first time where we're actually the horse and buggy, and so just kind of wanting to get some thoughts on that.
I'm not aware of any research that has been done there. Things are evolving so fast. That will eventually come. I read just this past week, the U.S. Department of Labor is asking companies who make layoffs, like you all may have read recently in the news, Amazon laid off 14,000 middle managers. They want to know if AI is responsible for those layoffs in any way. That's not in existence yet, but it's coming. So I think the research that you're asking about, somebody will be doing that in the future.
That's good. Excellent topic,
One more-
excellent
one more question, if you
presentation.
don't
Yeah,
mind.
please, thanks.
Are there any plans to continue to educate the board on AI capabilities or classes that may be available so we can get a better understanding of how it's progressing or how it could be used?
There are some states that I found in my research. There are some states that are doing that. There is a Bachelor of Science in Applied AI that started at the University of Tennessee in this past fall. There are other schools that are incorporating AI into the curriculum just generally. So opportunities are definitely out there.
One more follow-up with that. Is there also a push for K through 12 or what's actually happening in the local schools?
Yes, there is, as I said, Lynn Parker, who was a giant in AI, started a K-12 initiative. She has since retired, so I don't know where that stands, but I know that I feel like that program still exists on some level.
And so,
today.
Commissioner, when you think about the list of things that we need to do to close those gaps, Obviously, he mentioned a few things that we're already doing. Can you speak a little more on initiatives that we have going, maybe that aren't in phase yet, or assign somebody to report? Yeah.
Yeah, so we're aware of the U.S. Department of Labor report. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to be at Harvard with their researchers with their project on education and workforce, and part of that was the survey data they've collected around business and industry and the impact of AI disruption. And from that report will be analysis back out to states on what skills, what curriculum can be needed to further pace AI as it advances, both with human-enabled technology and we're starting to see very early some tasks that are strictly being done by robots in a body. And so at the governor's conference, for those of you that were able to sit in, we got a little bit of a glimpse of that. So to answer the question, Lee, you had, is that what feels like a next step, I know Deb, they've been doing incredible work in education, is for us, if the board sees what it feels like AI is a priority for this board, is to really come back to provide sort of an inventory of work that's already being done. So the board has a very clear understanding of what initiatives are already underway and what is the progression of those. Coupled with that, we can also bring in information to the board to help the fluency around AI so that you can better oversee how well that portfolio gets rolled out, both in K-12, also in post-secondary, and in some of those add-on skills around micro-credentials. And we know UT is already doing incredible work to make sure that there's AI adjunct work going on, whether you're a nurse or you're in IT. There are AI courses that complement that in other universities across the state. So we can work, Chairman, to bring back a list of all of the activity going on from K-12 all the way through post-secondary, and to give the board just a better understanding of what's already happening, the work that we're doing, and also ensure that AI now becomes sort of an ongoing part of the agenda and the work, which will include webinars and access to training and information for the board to increase fluency as well.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? Good questions, good discussion. So thank you for your interest in that. Stuart, thank you very much. Or, I'm sorry, Edward, thank you very much. Okay, our next presentation is going to be done virtually, so we're going to take a little break so we can connect that. So let's be back at 10:10. Okay, so take about a 10-minute break, and we'll get ready for our next presentation. Presentation is another follow-up at the August board meeting. We talked about the benefits cliff in Tennessee, and so this is a little bit of a follow-up to that. And Amy, why don't you introduce our presenter and tell us what we're going to hear next?
I will. Good morning, everyone. I'm well acquainted with our board members, but for those of you in the audience, my name is Amy Mayberry. I work for the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development. I serve as the executive director for this board, State Workforce Development Board. As part of my role, I help follow up on projects that this board has determined that they want to pursue. Also help make sure that those initiatives, strategic initiatives, align with the board's priorities. Today, I'm here with some partners and colleagues to present to you a pilot program that is in direct follow-up from our August board meeting, and if you'll recall, our August strategic planning session that we as board members conducted the day before our August meeting. Board members, remember that at those August meetings, we were joined by Brittany Birkin. Brittany is a director and principal advisor in community and economic development at the Atlanta Federal Reserve. Brittany introduced us to the concept of the benefits cliff and really took us on a deep dive of what that looks like and how it can be impactful, really showing us with a very eye-opening conversation about how even a small increase in low-income workers' wages can make them suddenly ineligible for public assistance benefits and thereby result in an overall net financial loss. And obviously that is a barrier to workforce advancement and something that this board really took to heart and became concerned about. So I'd like to thank Commissioner Thomas for connecting us to Brittany and the work of the Federal Reserve. Commissioner, it was really your leadership and vision that steered this board toward this effort and began the conversation. It again really hit home with the board and resonated with you as members, and so we ended our August board meeting with your call to action to explore opportunities for awareness and cliff mitigation. Since then, we've stayed connected with Brittany Birkin from the Atlanta Federal Reserve. We've pulled in some partners, pulled in our internal teams, and together worked to structure a pilot to present to you as follow-up from that August meeting. So I'm excited to announce to you today, in partnership with the Atlanta Federal Reserve, with the Northern Middle Local Workforce Development Board, and with advisory support from our partners at the Martha O'Brien Center and the Tennessee Department of Human Resources, we're launching a pilot to integrate the Benefits Cliff tool into Tennessee's American Job Centers. Very excited about that. In summarizing our goal and key objectives that you see here, we're really focused on the principle of you can't fix what you don't understand. This pilot and the ultimate statewide launch thereafter will be aimed at helping individuals understand and then address the financial impact of benefits cliffs. From a really high level, we'll do that by empowering our American Job Center career counselors to utilize the CLIF tool to model how wage or job affects income and public benefits and what is the relationship between the two. And then really guide job seekers towards career pathways that will promote long-term self-sufficiency. Then we plan to use the information from that pilot to inform service delivery for a statewide launch while bringing awareness to employers about the benefits cliff and how it impacts their workers. So we'll tell you a little bit more about this pilot in a few moments, but before we do, I wanted you to be able to hear again from Brittany Birkin. Brittany is joining us virtually today from the Atlanta Federal Reserve. Brittany is continuing to work on some Tennessee-specific data that will help inform this pilot as we move forward. She's also been a fantastic partner in helping us to structure our action. Brittany, I'd like to go ahead and give you the floor. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Amy. Good morning, everyone. Wonderful to be with you again, albeit virtually. As Amy said, wanted to do a little bit of follow-up. One of the really good questions you all asked when we were together in August was, is there a way to better understand who's at greatest risk of hitting a benefits cliff? To answer that, ideally, we would have access to state administrative data. That is the data that's relevant to state departments who are actually serving those that receive public assistance like SNAP or Medicaid or housing. But that can be often very difficult to access across multiple agencies. So in the meantime, we're working on analysis using the most recent American Community Survey data and our policy rules database that will allow us to assess the low and moderate income families' likelihood of hitting a cliff. So our analysis is going to include the proportion of families that are currently near a cliff, those, as Amy said, that could receive a modest pay increase and put them in direct risk of hitting a cliff, as well as some examples where with workforce training and supports, a family may have an increase to their net financial resources that puts them right in or near a cliff. We're going to work with the Departments of Labor and Human Services to finalize the analysis, and then if you'll have me back, we can plan to come back and present that information to you at an upcoming board meeting. We're ready to partner in any way helpful as you move forward piloting the CLIF tools and preparing for statewide implementation. As Amy said, I've had the opportunity to engage in different prep meetings to help think through the use of the tools for the pilot, and we're ready to support any training needs as this advances. We've also had some conversation about the opportunity to track data for those clients or participants that are going to have access to the CLIF tools. That will help us also have a better understanding of what are the barriers for the very families being served or job seekers being served. So I know others are going to speak in more detail about the pilot, and so for now, unless there are questions for me, I'll transition back to Amy.
Thank you, Brittany. Again, I appreciate you joining us today. And Brittany is going to hang on until the end of this presentation so that she's available for any questions that you may have. To provide more details on the pilot design and the implementation of moving forward, I'll now turn it over to my colleague, Jason Cecil. Jason is an assistant commissioner with the Tennessee Department of Labor, and then we'll also hear from Marla Rye, who's the executive director for the Northern Middle Local Workforce Development Board.
Thank you, Amy. Hello. Thank you, Amy, and good morning, everybody. Obviously, you know, from what we've seen and heard, this is a really exciting tool that we're excited to implement within the AJCs. We're excited about this pilot that Marla's going to speak to more detail about. But ultimately, you know, in determining how to roll this out, right, as a pilot and also as a statewide initiative, we were fortunate enough for Brittany to make a connection with us to a representative with the AJC network in Florida. And they've been using this pilot for quite some time, so it was great to hear their insight about how they implemented the program, how they currently use it, and then how they measure success as well. That was one of the things that I was really interested in, about what metrics are you looking at to determine, you know, whether or not this process is and this tool is successful. So as I said, Marla's going to speak more specifically about the launch, which that's going to take place in Davidson County in early 2026. We're really excited to get that kicked off, and then that's going to inform how we do the statewide rollout, which our plan as of right now is to occur in the summer of 2026. You know, this obviously, this benefits CLIF tool. It's a great resource for those on public assistance to provide awareness and avoidance of the cliff. And ultimately, we want to provide those people with financial stability and independence long term. But beyond those individuals, which I think is probably the, you know, the obvious beneficiary of the tool, you know, we see this as a great benefit to just anybody who we deal with in the American Job Center, whether they're on public assistance or not. You know, if you think about the people that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, many of them come to us and they don't know what to pursue, right? They may be at a crossroads in their career or in their life. They've lost their job for some reason and they don't know what's out there and available. and don't know what's a good long-term solution or how to even begin that process. So we view this as a tool to allow us to inform those decisions for those individuals, and really provide that individualized approach to career coaching, which is what we want to do as an American Job Center. You know, each individual that comes to us is just that, an individual. And what we don't want to do is give them the same cookie cutter, basic information every time they come in. We really want to focus on that individual and putting them on a path to success that best fits their needs in their current life position. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Marla. She's the executive director. I'm sure a lot of y'all know her over Northern Middle Workforce Development Board, and she'll give more specifics about the pilot.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, my name is Marla Ryan. I'm the executive director of the Northern Middle Tennessee Workforce Board. Those that know me know I'm very passionate about what I do, and I also like to have fun while I'm working. So when I first heard about the benefits cliff, it brought me back many, many moons ago when I was a little girl, and I loved The Price is Right. And there was a game called Cliffhanger. And that guy went up that little cliff, and he was yodeling away, and when he got to the very top, over he went and down. And it was kind of scary to see him fall. And I immediately thought, that's not what we want for our clients. We want to empower them to have the knowledge and the skills to know what's coming and be able to provide supports so that they don't fall, but they leap over and continue their upward trajectory in their career pathways. So that's kind of my personal philosophy, and I want to share with you how pleased I am that the state chose Nashville to pilot this project. Those of you here locally, you may have seen recently on the news that a partnership was formed with Nashville State Community College to form a workforce campus with the American Job Center over on Elm Hill Pike. So we have got a perfect place to start this project. There are currently about 25 staff members in that American Job Center. They include representatives from our Title I Adult Youth Dislocated Worker programs. They include staff from Jay Baker's Adult Education Program, the Wagner Pizer Program, the Department of Human Services and Vocational Rehabilitations, veterans, reentry. So it doesn't matter what your walk of life is. We've got folks that can help you there, and having this benefits cliff tool is just going to be another tool in our toolbox to provide assistance to those job seekers. And as far as the labor shed, I believe Nashville is the perfect place to do that. We've got 3% unemployment, but that equates to about 13,000 people looking for work in Davidson County. We've got about 30,000 families on SNAP benefits here, and we have foot traffic of around 1,200 people a month that come through the center. So I really believe we've got the labor shed to test this and have a pilot that's going to give us valuable information as we go forward. So what are our plans? We are now in the fourth quarter of calendar year 2025. So we have been working with management and with the staff at the Department of Labor to plan out what this pilot is going to look like. Multiple thanks to Brittany and her team at the Atlanta Federal Reserve Bank. They have been valuable in educating us, because if we don't know what the pilot is or what the tool is and how it works, how can we implement that with our staff? So they have been wonderful. We have also, as Jason said, we have connected with our peers in Workforce Central Florida, and they have given us tricks to this trade and things that they have learned that they really wanted want us to be successful, so we know some of the pitfalls to watch and think that we will really be benefited by what we've learned from Florida. But you know, we don't have to go to Florida. We've got subject matter experts right here, and our neighbors at the Martha O'Brien Center, and we've been working with Kent and Keith and Kimberly back there. They presented at the last board meeting. They're going to be partnering with us on this to help with that intensive counseling and coaching that individuals that are facing the cliff really, really need from us. And also, I've got to give a shout out to Jeremy and Jason. They are working, and we're trying to plan how to incorporate this pilot and get the data matrix that we need into our Jobs for TN system so that we can know how many folks we're working with, we can know what their outcomes are, how many of them went to work, and ultimately what happened to their benefits, and did they jump that cliff that we want them to do. So that's happening during the fourth quarter, and then during December and early January is really where the rubber's going to meet the road, and we're going to go into staff training. And again, those 25 individuals plus the staff of the Nashville State Community College, their counselors and all, thanks to the Atlanta Federal Reserve Bank, they've already got a Cliff Academy developed. There are 4 courses that the staff will be required to take, and it's about 7 hours total. So it's not a 30-minute certificate issued and you're ready to go. It's very intensive coursework that we need to make sure that our staff are trained and understand. Not only is it online, but they have got hypothetical examples of Stuart has got 3 kids, is on public assistance, and he needs to get a job that's making X amount of dollars in order to avoid that. So there's going to be hypothetical and kind of examples where people can learn as they are taking these courses. Not only that, we're going to work with the Martha O'Brien Center so that they can come on site and provide classroom training and interaction in learning how to counsel individuals on the cliff and how to make sure that you're prepared for that. So then we will be launching around January the 12th in Davidson County, and I think that we will be ready to go then and really be able to take in those 1,200 folks that are coming into the center and work with them. One of the things that I wanted to touch on too is our friends in Florida recommended that anyone that is going into training that the American Job Center is going to support a training activity for, that they go through this cliff so they will know what their projected earnings are and how it might affect the family income and all. So it's not just individuals that are receiving benefits, but it's also those that are going into training as well. So that brings us to the spring, and this is where I'm really excited because not only do job seekers need to know about benefits cliffs, but employers need to know. And thanks to Brandon Finks and Selena Moore, we are starting a hospitality and tourism workforce task force here in Davidson County. In Davidson County, hospitality and tourism is the second largest industry sector. And unfortunately, it has a reputation of being a low-wage career. That's not always the case. There's wonderful, wonderful jobs in the hospitality and tourism sector. So we are going to plan on working with that task force, educating employers on the benefits cliff. So they will know when they bring in someone, what a $14 an hour job is going to do. And how can employers provide supports, maybe daycare assistance or employer-provided daycare, to help bridge that gap and overcome that cliff barrier. So I'm really excited about working with employers and educating them. I think if we do both of that with the job seeker and the employer, we will really make headway in this project. Last thing is statewide launch. So we're going to go through June 30th, and we're going to gather the statistics and the data from the pilot project. And then at that point, we'll reevaluate, look to see what we need to do better or what we could have done differently. And then after that, in July of 2026, then we will expand it to all American Job Centers in the northern middle workforce area as the state expands to the 8 other workforce areas across the state of Tennessee. So a lot's happening, and I really believe that our job seekers are going to be benefited from this and have them start planning about their future and their financial responsibilities as they go to work. So, questions?
Thank you, Marla. I'm going to have Marla hang out and Jason hang out just for a moment, and while Brittany's still on the line, so we can ask some questions collectively. Just to wrap us up, I wanted to say again how much I appreciate this partnership. I think that you've seen from Marla's comments, Jason's comments, and Brittany, just really the power of partnership and a shared commitment to provide follow-up to the board on your request. I'll close by saying you can expect more follow-up at our next meeting in February. Brittany will be back to share that Tennessee-specific data. We should also have some early pilot information to share with you. And as we progress in this pilot and share more information, I think it will become clear to you as board members if there are further opportunities you'd like to explore when it comes to the benefits cliff. Between now and February, our next step is to continue bringing all of our partners to the table. We want to make sure that what we plan aligns with and supports the great work that our partners have already done within this space in Tennessee. Martha O'Brien Center and Department of Human Services particularly. Our partners at Martha O'Brien Center are here with us. Would you mind just waving your hand? Thank you. Thank you. So thrilled that you're here today and appreciate your continued partnership. We will continue meeting again with Department of Human Services. They have done important work along with Martha O'Brien through the TANF demonstration grants. They spoke about that at our last board meeting. So we'll collectively work together to ensure that we're informed by what they have learned for those demonstration grants, and we kind of put it all together and start pushing together across the goal line to progress and offer this tool to Tennesseans. Chairman Berry, I'll open it up now if you have any questions or board members would like to pose questions to the group. I would ask if you have a question, please speak into your microphone so that Brittany may hear you.
Yeah, excellent. And you know, my first response is thank you for responding so quickly and getting a pilot up this fast. So it's just nice to know that when we talk about something and we see some energy around an initiative, to see it turn around so quickly. So thank you for that. What questions do you have for the team? Yeah, go ahead, Jackie.
So first of all, thank you so much for putting this together. And I do think that the Davidson County launch is a perfect place due to the housing and transportation challenges. The cliff is early, significant, and extended. My question is this: how will we measure the outcomes of the measures that we're putting in the first of the year? And also, is there a time frame that we expect to continue with it?
Thank you. I'm going to let Brittany answer that question first, and then I think, Jason, you might want to follow that up with some of the data that you have discussed collecting as part of the pilot. Brittany?
Sure. So part of what we've been talking through, and I invite everyone that is part of this to offer in too, is, so you all may remember that I shared the CLIF tools do not collect or retain data, but there is the ability to create a mechanism for tracking that data. And so that would be, you know, working closely with the folks at Labor and Marla and her team to identify key characteristics. So where are people, what are their earnings coming in? What public assistance are they currently accessing? What training decisions do they make based on the coaching and the informed decision making? And then when we move longer term, we would be able to assess really the efficacy of the coaching and the informed decision making to better understand, are families achieving economic self-sufficiency? Are they making it up and over those cliffs?
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. Really what we're working on right now is creating a form or an application in our current Jobs for Tennessee system so that we'll be able to enter a lot of the information that's entered into that tool but not saved so that we can track that locally. And then to Brittany's point, we're really going to be looking at the wage data, and things like that. When they come in, we'll record where they currently are with their wages. We're going to look at what type of public assistance that they're on, other things like that. And then long-term, we're going to track that through the growth of that through the UI tax data that we get.
Stuart.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I'd echo the chairman's comments on the quickness of the response. Thank you very much for that. One thing that I lament is that we are tackling in a very thorough way the problem, right? The cliff is the problem. And it would be, I hope that, and it seems like that there ought to be an opportunity for us to figure out a way to blow up that cliff and create a staircase of some sort that people, can descend down to, that they're not hit and we don't have to manage around the cliff and figure out things and so forth. So is that part of a future objective?
I think it's certainly an opportunity that the board can explore. But Suzanne Carr, I believe, has had to step out. She's with Department of Human Services, but we were speaking before the board meeting. I mentioned that we will continue to partner with DHS as we utilize what they have learned from the TANF demonstration grants to inform our pilot. And what she was saying was, we're really excited about this board caring for the work because the individuals that DHS works with a lot of time are in crisis and perhaps may not be ready for the next step of the benefits cliff conversation. We are the AJC is the perfect place to begin that piece of the conversation. So what I like about this is the State Workforce Board is designed, positioned to be the quarterback of the workforce development system. And this is an example of that, where the board is bringing together partners who are doing different pieces of the puzzle. We're going to bring it all together and be able to make a coordinated, collective effort. Have had conversations with Martha O'Brien team as well. This is an example of really how they advise and inform this pilot. Initially thinking, okay, how do we mitigate the cliffs? Because it would be a shame to bring it to someone's attention, but then not be able to help them get beyond the cliff, which I think is what your question pertains to. And what they were telling me is, so far with the TANF grant, the TANF demonstration grants, there's a couple arms of those grants that sort of throw money at the problem with cliff mitigation, and there's others that focus on intensive counseling, and they're beginning to see early on that intensive counseling really is the piece that makes the difference. So I think that as we apply all those pieces to our pilot, pull data, as Jason and Brittany have spoken about, and begin to move forward, I hope that we'll have a clear picture as a team to say, okay, in Tennessee, what works best for us? Would it be intensive counseling and perhaps a combination? Could it be policy development? So we'll begin to make the picture more clear as to what our coordinated answer should be.
Thank you.
Amy, thank you for your response. Mr. Chairman, if I can just add one piece. Amy, I think you hit on that toward the end. One of the things that is very apparent in the expansion of the board's responsibilities on the Executive Order 109 is that the board can actually study a problem and look at potential solutions and then make policy recommendations. We kind of got a shortcut with the policy advisor sitting next to me here. But being able to make policy decisions, but more than just recommendations, really having a deck of now evidence-based approaches that have outcome data, which oftentimes is not the case. There are policy recommendations, but without any outcome data. And we have folks at the table, such as David with Agape. So with the culmination of all of the practice here, the board can create sort of a white paper, if you will, that has the evidence, that have the potential solutions, and then make recommendations about how much of this needs to be codified to redirect how we do business as a state when it pertains to benefit cliffs, other workforce-related and independence-related activities that are occurring.
Good. Other comments? David?
Yes, thank you. David Jordan with Agape in Memphis. Thank you for this conversation, Stuart, for raising, and Commissioner, what you just said. This really is a systemic issue. It's a policy issue. And so I really applaud all the work Martha O'Brien, Dr. Birkin, who I followed up and talked with after the meeting, and again, how quickly y'all have moved on this. I really applaud that. I fully affirm what you just said. And so, knowing this is the last session of this administration, I would even say, is there something this body might consider relative to that? And that'd be maybe too quick, but I think it is opportune to consider. And I appreciate just logistically, we are where we're at, and so what does that mean for families? We see that every day. So I wanted to say that. I also, in terms of just the pragmatics, curious how what you are piloting, which again I applaud, in the conversation we just had around AI, is there integration conversation around informing participants, providing good information, counsel, and using AI as a tool to even help families in looking down the road futuristically in their pathway toward their goal?
Absolutely, and one of the things that we have started doing in Northern Middle is having AI workshops in our America Job Center so that they can start to understand the concepts around it. Now, having those ethical behaviors and decisions that go on with that too needs to be focused on. But I believe, going back to the previous question too, is throwing more money at the problem may not be the best approach until we know exactly what we need to do to address that through policy. So I think you've got very good points there.
All right, no other questions? Very good. Thank you so much for your presentation. Good work. Brittany, thanks for joining us virtually, and I think we're ready to move on. Okay, next we're going to get committee updates from the meetings that we had prior to today's board meeting. So let's start with oversight. Martha, what happened in your committee meeting today?
Good morning. We were very timely, so we kept with the governor's schedule. So we started on time and we ended early, so that was good. We had a presentation from Brooks Young, the Assistant Administrator for Tennessee Works. He kind of brought us up to date for those people who didn't attend GovCon and see our great slide presentation. Tennessee Works is the state's one-stop shop for serving businesses, launched at GovCon last November 5th. Tennessee Works will serve as the collective brand for connecting employers to all of Tennessee's workforce-related services and customized workforce solutions. Major accomplishment. The team is currently engaging with employers working through customized workforce plans, and we will have continued training and hiring of the hub staff, which is going to be housed in this building. And his hope is to have an executive director at a desk in January of 2026. So we're going to hold him to it.
Nice, very good.
Our next presenter was Brian, bringing us all of his T90 little numbers that we can never see on the board, but they're in your SharePoint packet. Total funding and expenditures for the current fiscal year are on pace to meet prior year activity, demonstrating consistency in operational and participant impact. $49 million received in discretionary funds for the fiscal year from both federal and state governments, and this funding aligns with the agency's strategic vision to invest in reentry, apprenticeship, training and non-degree credentialing, rural communities, and youth employment experience. And that concludes my report.
Very good. Any questions for Martha or the Oversight Committee? Very good. Okay, thank you. All right, Stuart, tell everybody what we did in the Operations Committee this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Operations Committee this morning, of course, we had some opening comments to discuss some of our strategic planning outcomes. We covered some of those, the initiatives that we have there. And then we received the Youth Employment Program update. Buddy Hoskinson introduced Jason Cecil to give us that update. This program has an $11.5 million budget for this funding year, and it comes from 2 or 3 sources. There are 13 grantees that manage that $11.5 million. The goal is to employ 8,000 with that $11.5 million, which results in roughly $1,490 or so per enrollee. Historically, we've spent about $2,500 per participant, so this version reflects a more efficient use of funding dollars. We currently have 2,888 participants this year. And the year runs, it's roughly, I think, July to July or in that neighborhood. So we have 2,888 toward our goal of 8,000. Ben Ferguson on the committee shared his gratitude for the program from his perspective as a local board member and the impact it's had at the local level. Ron Wade asked about individuals with disabilities. And the answer was 9 so far this year. There's a goal of 28 per local area, which results in 285 total. We then had the pleasure of seeing or receiving personal stories from 2 individuals, Gage Link and Micaiah London. And I think Gage is with us still. Gage, are you there? Yeah. Stand up, Gage, if you would, please. Thank you. Gage is an Austin Peay University student. He's a senior currently, but he served in a part-time level with Montgomery County Government Human Resources. And in that, he, among other things, he developed a peer-to-peer employee recognition program that we're using. It's called the Extra Mile. And so we very much appreciate that. And it's just evidence of the impact that this program can have for us. And of course, Gage testified to his appreciation for it and his excitement around his work with Montgomery County. Micaiah shared a wonderful story of her journey from homeless to currently managing a store. She's pursuing pharmacy tech and a bachelor in psychology. She wants to work in social services to help people who find themselves in circumstances similar to those that she was in. But she has a job, and so she had to go be where she's expected to be. And we were grateful she could carve out a little bit of time this morning to give us a very, very inspirational story. We also received a Tennessee Works update, and I could not possibly improve upon Martha's description, so I won't try. That's our update, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. And just to echo your report on the testimonies of those youth participants, that's exactly what we're trying to do, right? Finding ways to put people to work who may not otherwise be able to get jobs. And both of those stories, totally different circumstances, but one solution to help them get work in a variety of ways. So it just reminds us why we do what we're doing, and they were great, and I'm sure there are more stories like that, and I can just talk about that all day long. Okay. What other questions do you have for Stuart or the Operations Committee? Very good. Okay, innovation.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. So during this morning's meeting, the Innovation Committee had 2 guest presenters and addressed other important topics for 2026. Our first presentation came from Tamara Parsons, the performance consultant from the University of Tennessee Institute for Public Service. Ms. Parsons discussed the certification program for our local boards that's ongoing. The project is currently on schedule with all 3 Middle Tennessee boards reviews have been completed, and all 3 West Tennessee boards reviews are in their early stages. Ms. Parsons complimented the local boards on their strong engagement, citing excellent collaborations with executive directors and other staff. The process is already generating positive results. Short-term improvements have led to standardized meeting practices statewide. more flexible onboarding and orientation procedures, and improved communication to board members between meetings. Moving forward, long-term goals include assessing opportunities to better align systems and more accurately measure the impact of the local board operations. Our second guest came from Brooks Young, Assistant Administrator to Workforce Strategy and Development. Brooks discussed the rollout of the Tennessee Works, the state's one-stop shop for servicing businesses. Tennessee Works was launched at GovCon on November the 5th and will serve as the collective brand for connecting employers to all Tennessee workforce-related services and solutions. The Tennessee Works team is currently engaging with employers and working through customized plans based on their unique needs. Brooks ended his presentation by sharing that the next phase of Tennessee Works will include continued training and hiring of staff beginning early 2026.
Very good. Love it. Any questions for the Innovation Committee or Linda? Good reports. It sounds like it was a good use of time this morning. So, and thank you, Brooks, particularly for making the rounds and doing a marathon presentation at each one of the committees. So thank you for that. Okay. This is our last meeting of the year. Remember that as we get into the 2026 meetings, pay attention to the dates that we have already sent out to you. Make sure those are marked on your calendars and that you're prioritizing time with the board to be in attendance for those. We are going to have a little bit of a different time structure moving forward, so pay attention to that. If you remember, recently we said we would like a little more constructive time during the committee meetings to get some work done because we've been a little bit rushed in some of those, and so we want to provide more opportunity for discussion and maybe some approvals and recommendations that those committees can then bring to the boards. I think we'll have more to discuss based on the new authority that this board has and allocations and policy recommendations and decisions that will be able to make. And so we'll need some of that committee time to be able to do that. So we're going to lengthen the amount of time that we have in those committees, and that may also then result in a little bit of lengthier time for these board meetings. So just pay attention to that going in. We're still not going to take all day, but it may be a little earlier and just a little later on both ends of what you may have been accustomed to. Okay, so prepare for that. Thanksgiving is coming up. I'm thankful for this board. I hope that as you spend time with your families and reflect on that season, that you will have much to be thankful for. This is a great state, and we are in good shape, and we serve a tremendous number of people and great residents. So I hope your gratitude expands to that. And thankful for this staff and everybody that helps contribute to making sure that our workers, our workforce in the state is taken care of. Any other comments from board members or staff that need to be made? All right, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Hey, thank you, Kevin.
Second.
Thank you, Jackie. And anybody opposed to that? Okay, then let's adjourn.